فاحفظه عن تناول الحرام والشبهة واحرص على طلب الحلال. So he talks about the different parts of the body that we're supposed to preserve, and the different parts of the person that you're supposed to look after. So out of them, they said that the 7 parts that you have, we covered 5 of them before, or 4 of them before, and now we're on number 5, which is the stomach. وَأَمَا الْبَطْنُ. So he says the stomach, protect it from تَنَاوُلِ الْحَرَامِ وَالشُّبْهَةِ, from eating haram and that what is doubtful. وَحْرِصْ عَلَى طَلَبِ الْحَلَالِ, and focus on getting halal. So 2 things he's mentioning over here. Number 1 is to avoid the consumption of haram, and even that what is doubtful. So the scholars of the past, they were very particular on even eating food that was haram and doubtful as well, but there's shubha in there. It comes about Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi that he heard in Baghdad someone stole a goat, and the goat was stolen in the community. So he asked people around him, he said, how long is the average lifespan of a goat? They said it's about 5-6 years. So for that amount of time, he didn't eat any meat in Baghdad. He said that what if the stolen goat ends up on my dastarkhan? It ends up on my plate. It ends up in front of me. So avoiding that what is doubtful. وَحْرِصْ عَلَى طَلَبِ الْحَلَالِ, and try to get and seek that which is halal, that which is in its purest form. فَإِذَا وَجَدْتَهُ فَحْرِصْ عَلَى أَن تَقْتِصِرَ عَلَى مَا دُونَ الشِّبَعِ. If you find halal, then don't eat to your full. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says, أَوَّلُ بِدْعَةٍ بَعْدَ وَفَاةِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم الشِّبَعِ, that the first bid'ah after the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is eating to your full. فَإِنَّ الشِّبَعَ يُقَسِّ الْقَلْبِ وَيُفْسِدُ الذَّهْنِ, because eating to your full, it makes the stomach, it makes the heart hard, and it also corrupts the mind. وَيُبْطِلُ الْحِفْظِ, and it weakens the memory. Overeating has a lot of negative effects, and one of the main ones is that it makes the heart hard, and it messes with the person's mentality, because whatever you eat has an effect on you. وَيُثَقِّلُ الْأَعْضَاءَ عَنِ الْعِبَادَةِ وَالْعِلْمِ, and it makes the body parts difficult for them to seek knowledge. It makes it difficult. وَيُقَوِّ الشَّهَوَاتِ وَيَنْصُرُ جُنُودَ الشَّيْطَانِ وَالشِّبَعْ مِنَ الْحَلَالِ مَبْدَأُ كُلِّ شَرٍّ فَكَيْفَ مِنَ الْحَرَامِ. So he says, the scholars generally say that there are 4 things that you have to take in control in order to maximize your spirituality. Number 1 is eating less. Number 2 is sleeping less. Number 3 is talking less. And number 4 is meeting with people less. These are the 4 things. قِلَّةُ الطَّعَامِ قِلَّةُ الْكَلَامِ قِلَّةُ الْمَنَامِ قِلَّةُ الْاخْتِلَاطِ بِالْأَنَامِ. These 4 things that a person should do to reduce in order to be able to gain proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, one of the main aspects is the stomach, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, there is no container worse than a person's stomach, that a person goes and fills and eats whatever they want. One man was very fat, and he went to Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. And Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu says to him, Ma hada? What is this? So he said, Hada baraka min Allah. This is barakat. He said, La hada adab. He said, this is the punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This isn't barakah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, in the end of times, yudhir as-siman, that being obese becomes the norm. You know, when I travel other places, people tell me, hey, you Americans, you get a double cheeseburger, extra large fries, venti drink, but Diet Coke at the end of all of these things. Like controlling of what we eat. The Prophet ﷺ never ate twice in a day. He ate only one time. Rarely, he never ate 3 times in a day. He only ate one time and sometimes twice. But the habit of the Prophet ﷺ wasn't to eat in this manner. And to eat to his full, that did not happen. That didn't occur. And the Sahaba, they would see when there would be a plethora of food and people would indulge and eat into it, the Sahaba would be shocked and they would say, do you eat everything you see? When we go to a wedding or we go to a dawah or buffet or something, then it's like, oh, I haven't tried this, I haven't tried this, I haven't tried that, I haven't tried this. My Ustad Maulana Choksi used to mention to us that the purpose of multiple dishes at a buffet is not for you to try everything. That's not humanly possible. The maqsad and the purpose and the goal of is that everyone is different. Some people like meat, some like chicken, some like vegetables, some are vegetarian, some are vegan. Everyone's وَلِلنَّاسِ فِي مَا يَعْشَقُونَ مَذَاهِبُ. That in people, whatever they aspire or they like, they have their different preferences. So eating too much has an effect. You know what's actually interesting? Imam Muhammad Shaybani rahmatullah alayhi, he's a great scholar. Foremost student Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. We'll study more in detail about him in the history and evolution of fiqh. He was studying his mas'alas at nighttime. There was a bag of dates. And he just kept on eating while he was studying. You know how many of you guys just munch on chips when you're studying? He just kept on doing that. And he died of overeating. He died of just eating a lot of khajurs, dates. So that should be something that is definitely avoided, and that should be something that is definitely like, you know, you should kind of be careful of this. Food has an effect. So he says that these are the negative effects when you eat halal. Imagine what happens when you eat haram. The Prophet ﷺ said that that body that has been nourished by haram will not enter Jannah. It's been sustained with ghudhiya bil haram. It won't enter paradise. So it's not enough. You know, people are always like, oh, don't tell me. They'll say that, you know what? Don't tell me that this is haram. Wait till I finish. I'm opening the bag of chips right now. This isn't the prophetic method. There's another hadith of Tirmidhi. The Prophet ﷺ said, a believer eats from 1 intestine and a disbeliever eats from 7. Doesn't mean that they're biologically different than us. It means that a believer finds barakah in their food. And a disbeliever doesn't have barakah in their food. Eating a lot and then not getting, like, you know, that state is a lack of barakah in the food. Whereas little food, and that fulfills you, has a lot of barakah in it. And what's interesting is that what was the diet of the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ? What did they actually eat? Do you guys know? Like, what would dinner look like if the Prophet ﷺ invited you for dinner tonight? How many of y'all ate dinner already? Half of you guys? What time do you guys eat dinner?
3 p.m.
3 p.m.?
3 p.m.
You're whiter than Columbus.
9, 10.
9, 10. What do you?
That's a lot. We don't
Like 7, 8. 7.
What time do you guys usually eat
They're
dinner?
only selected
5?
5 to 7.
5 to 7 p.m. That's supper, man. Well, I mean, when we were in Madrasa Zakaria, we ate dinner after Asr Salah. I thought it was really weird when I came to South Africa and they had dinner after Asr. I thought that was very strange. They called it supper. But anyhow, I was saying something right before this. You guys threw me off.
You were asking what the Prophet would do. What happened?
The Prophet ﷺ, right? What would if the Prophet invited you for dinner today, what do you think would be on the table? Dates, okay. Huh?
Bread and yogurt.
Bread, yogurt, okay. Good. What else?
Milk, fish.
Lamb, zaytun. Milk, occasionally.
Hummus.
Vinegar and bread, very good.
Hummus.
Hummus. No. Unfortunately.
Onions.
Onions. No, the Prophet ﷺ didn't eat raw onions. He didn't eat raw onions.
Goat and grapes because those are in the Quran.
Goats and grapes. Well, there's a lot in the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't eat everything in the Quran, but
Although I saw some few fruits in the Quran, and I think grapes, olives was one of them.
olives was one of them too.
Oh no.
Very good.
Squash. Good.
Squash. Yeah, the Prophet's not serving you all of these things at once. Yeah. You would have come to the Prophet ﷺ's house and dinner would have been a cup of milk. Actually. That is how they serve people. A cup of milk. What happens when Abu Lahab and company come to the Prophet ﷺ's house and he gives them da'wah? They were like, we're not eating, we're not drinking. What was it? It was just milk. It was just a bowl of milk. The Prophet ﷺ enters home and he asks, what's there? And Aisha radiallahu anha says, al-khal, vinegar. He says, ni'm al-idam. This is perfect gravy. It's just a little bit of vinegar. My Ustad Mufti Alauddin rahmatullah alayhi used to say that this is not like y'all's cheap vinegar. He's like, the vinegar, anyone like has made actual vinegar at home, like the way they make it back in the Gaon, in the village, whatever, had that type of vinegar. I haven't had it either, but he used to say that was very ladid. He used to say that was very delicious. It tasted really well. That, the actual way they made the vinegar. So the Prophet ﷺ would just have bread and vinegar. The food of the Prophet ﷺ wasn't overtly dramatic. The Arabs in general, I mean, I know we have a few Arabs in here, and no hate, not throwing shade, right? But salt, you threw a little bit of salt in the food and wow, it's more than enough, right? Pepper if you want to go a little crazy, right? But for the most part, that's enough. Now you have the desis. You put the shan masala in, and then on top of that, the mezban masala, and then your own little masalas and all of this, and then you combine 3 different masalas. Too much masalas in desis. Too much spices. It's actually not good for you. Even though, like, if we don't have it, we're like, who doesn't have spice? But still, right? Too much spice isn't good for you. In the simplicity, it's because what happens is that you become so accustomed to high flavors that you don't enjoy the simplicity of the food. So now, like, take desis for example. If you just have meat with just salt and pepper, you're gonna be like, could you be nahi? There's nothing in here. Whereas bahut kuch hai, there's a lot in this. And when you're so accustomed to just all of these other spices and these things, you lose the value and the barak of the food itself, right? The other thing was that for the Sahaba, the asal was the bread, and the tabi' was the curry. And what do I mean by that? When you go to the restaurant and you're ordering food, right, bread and curry, what do you look at first on the menu? The curry. Butter chicken, this. And then it's the naan. They weren't like this. For them, the naan was the asal, the bread. And to make that palatable, they added curry to it. It wasn't that they were looking for the specific curry and the curry. No, the asal was the bread. And again, like appreciation of the simple stuff. When I was fasting and I did i'tikaf in Makkah and Medina, 10, 12 hours, you're sweating bullets and it's hot, and you're hungry, you're thirsty. People come out and give you little pieces of bread. Wallah, that bread would taste absolutely amazing. Those dates would taste amazing. Because there's qadr for it, there's value for it, right? Now over here, you're having the chaat and the samosa and this. You have no value for any of the stuff that's around you. So he says that eating too much makes your shahwa and your desires grow. Eating meat a lot has an effect on your hormones, on your shahwa. Shahwa is those desires that are that make you inclined towards other in a sexual manner. So shahwa is actually increased through consumption of meat, especially red meat. And the more red meat you have, the more it affects you. And that is why the people of the past, and when I say the people of the past, I mean like up until probably your parents or grandparents' times, they only had meat like twice a month. We are not largely carnivorous people. We are actually largely vegetarian people. The Sahaba and the Prophet, they didn't eat meat every single day. It was a luxury, you had it once or twice. We were largely vegetarians. And that's why, like, yes, we just don't slaughter a squash on Eid al-Adha, but beyond that, largely eating vegetables is very good for you. And I mean, we don't have that culture in us, right? And that's something that's good to adopt. You'll see the people, when they get older, the healthiest ones, is largely due to diet. Anyone who I've seen that doesn't age and that just looks amazing in their 80s and 90s, the key thing is few things. Number one is diet. Number two is not taking stress, not getting stressed out. Number three is talking to people. I've met a lot of old people in my life, and I like to ask them, like, what do you do to be old? Like, how do you stay? And they'll still give these interesting answers. So he says, وَيَنْصُرُ جُنُودَ الشَّيْطَانِ. It also helps the army of shaitan. وَالشِّبَعْ مِنَ الْحَلَالِ مَبْدَأُ كُلِّ شَرٍ. He says, eating to your full of halal is the beginning to every evil. That's how evil begins. فَكَيْفَ مِنَ الْحَرَامِ. If this is the problems of eating halal to your full, what about haram? Now you'll tell me that, well, Mufti, I don't eat zabiha, but I eat halal. No. There's only one type of halal, and that's it. Anyone else who says otherwise, unless they're a specialist in fiqh, their opinion doesn't really matter in this situation. There's only one mechanism and method of making something halal. That's it. And what's established in the fiqh is established in the fiqh. There is no necessity. There's a principle in usul al-fiqh that necessities, they bring ease, right? There is no necessity for you to eat Chick-fil-A. There's no necessity for you to eat food that's haram. No, there is not. And this might actually, this is probably gonna get me in trouble, but you know what? Someone has to say it. Most of the halal restaurants in Dallas that are halal are not halal. And I'm not saying because they use haram meat. It's because the ingredients in the back they use are halal. This isn't me just bringing this up. I had somebody who certifies places for halal food come to me and tell me, we're about to certify this place, this, that. He's like, Mufti, I walked into their back and they're using this item in the Chinese thing that has wine, this. I was like, did you call? Wallahi al-azim an uqsim billah. This is the truth. And I said, I was like, did you call them out on it? He was like, no, if I call them out on it, they won't even get the halal certification. I'm just like, what? In South Africa, if you ever seen your Shan Masala boxes, you ever seen Shan Masala? You all use Shan Masala. There is this little green emblem on the bottom that says Sanha. You ever seen that? Sanha? Ever seen it? Go look at your Shan Masala. Shan Masalas, the masala gets authorized as halal from South Africa. Sanha is South African National Halal Association. It's run by ulama and madrasa graduates from our own. When we were studying in IFTA, we had to go and visit their plant and abattoirs and see the whole process and everything. We had to study that by them. So Sanha does this, right? When they authorize a restaurant from beginning ingredient to the last ingredient, they check everything is halal. Why? It's because if you don't eat halal, What's the biggest thing that eating haram costs you? What's the biggest thing? What's the biggest price of eating haram? Your du'as aren't accepted. Your du'as aren't accepted. Now you got to ask yourself: is that Chick-fil-A sandwich really that important, or are you getting that du'a answered? Like that, you have to really put that into perspective. That even things that have shubha, doubt, don't eat it. You go to people's homes, like unless someone, when I first came to Dallas, I was very clear. I would tell people, like, I eat only manslaughter and this and that, and someone came to me and said, what if people get offended? I said, you have two types of people. Either the person themselves eats manslaughter, they get the reason why you're asking them, they're not going to be offended. I was like, or they don't eat manslaughter, and then they understand the reason why you're asking them. I was like, but any third category of people that are getting offended makes no sense to me. But now everybody knows, if there's some lone person that I don't know at all, or I doubt their meat, then I'll just let them know beforehand. But in my beginning days, it was a very common occurrence. The moment I got a call or a message, I said, I'll go and eat, but I'm particular on this thing. Now we are in a situation that most of the food that we are around us is not halal. And if it is halal, the ingredients aren't halal. I know people that sitting across masjids, Muslim restaurants, across masjids. My own friend told me this. We're about to eat food. He said, I wouldn't eat that. I was like, this is your restaurant. He's like, no, we just keep the halal boxes and the meat comes from elsewhere. Your Tahir chicken had the same problem that happened. Now it closed down. For a whole month, haram meat was being distributed. In New York, multiple times the plants were caught selling haram meat. Like straight haram. Like not even like, no, like full on, 100%. Sevilla haram. Like, that's what it was. وَطَلَبُ الْحَلَالِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. It is fard on you to seek halal. It is fard on you. وَالْعِبَادَةُ وَالْعِلْمُ مَعَ أَكْلِ الْحَرَامِ كَالْبِنَاءِ عَلَى السِّرْجَيْنِ وَهُوَ الزِّبْلُ. He says that worshipping Allah and seeking knowledge while eating haram is like building a palace out of garbage. It's like building a structure out of garbage. That structure has no value, it smells, it's repulsive, it's rotten inside. فإذا قنعت في السنة بقميص خشن وفي اليوم برغيفين من الخشكار وتركت التلذذ بأطايب الأدم لم يعوزك من الحلال ما يكفيك فالحلال كثير. He said, if you are content with one rough shirt for an entire year and just 2 loaves of bread a day, like 2 rotis a day, giving up the pleasure of enjoying the best sauces and seasonings, then you will not be short of what is halal, and in an amount that will suffice you, since what is lawful is plentiful. Then he goes on and he says, it's a simple thing. If you can learn minimalism, go read about this and watch his videos on minimalism. The Japanese, it's like a whole craze amongst them. Have little and you'll be more happy. Have little and be more happy. You guys, mashallah, had an amazing souk. What was the souk? The souk was literally a glimpse of the israf of this ummah. It was a glimpse of the israf of this ummah, that you paid so much for those things, and literally heaps of them were left here. And a time came that each of those people, when those items were first purchased, they were purchased with hard-earned money, they went to the best dawats, new fit, new all of this. And then what happened? Left on the floor for anyone to pick up for even free. That's the reality of it all. This was a glimpse of the israf of this ummah. How many go inside like 20 hijabs? Like 30 pairs of shoes. Well, I'm a sneakerhead. What do you mean? You have shoes that you're collecting, you're not wearing, and you have the intention of resale, zakat is wajib on that. It's a business commodity right there. Learn more about it in our history of evolution. Starting this Thursday. وليس عليك أن تتيقن باطن الأمور بل عليك أن تحترز مما تعلم أنه حرام أو تظن أنه حرام ظنا مع ما حصل من علامات ناجزة لعلة مقرونة بالمال. He says, look, it is not your responsibility to attain certainty about obscure matters, but you're obliged to guard against what you know to be unlawful or what you reasonably suspect to be, based on a clear indication that is association to the law. Meaning that you don't need to go there and be like, brother, did your chicken pray Fajr today morning? Did it do wudu before you slaughtered it? You don't have to do that, right? Ghazālī says this, but I say you have to. Why? It's because the zamana is a zamana of fitna. The zamana is a zamana of fitna. And in a zamana of fitna, then when amana is gone, the Prophet ﷺ said a time will come when Allah will take amana away. And amana will not be found in people. Trust will not be found in people. And we live in that era today. We live in an era of a lack of trust in amana. فأما المعلوم فظاهر وأما المظنون بعلامة فهو مال السلطان وعماله ومال من لا كسب له إلا من نياحة أو بيع الخمر أو الربا أو المزامير حتى علمت أن أكثر ماله حرام قطعا فما تأخذه من يده وإن أمكن أن يكون حلالا نادرا فهو حرام لأنه الغالب على الظن. He says, now this is the tricky part over here. And that is that when we say haram food, we're not just talking about like Chick-fil-A and Burger King and McDonald's. We're talking about even wealth that you have earned from a haram manner. If someone is working at a bank or they're working at a haram job, eating from their wealth is also not permissible. Eating from their wealth is not permissible. The business itself is haram. Predominantly it's interest. It sells alcohol, it sells pork, these gas station type of businesses, banks, insurances, insurance companies. These are not all permissible. Weapons, buying and selling weapons, especially in this era, which is used to kill innocent, especially Muslims. So he says that there is some wealth that is clear and it is halal and you know it, or is clear and is haram and you know it, and some that you're doubtful, and that's like the politician's money, the government officials, the wealth of the person who has no income from any type of professional, he's like a professional mourner. You know, some people, back in the day, what they would do is that you know how you guys buy likes and followers? Back in the day, the equivalent of that was when someone died, they would pay them to come and cry at their graves. Called noha. Noha, they would cry out loud and they'd hit their faces and it'd be like, oh my God, you know, Malik, you are such a great person. Oh Malik, you know, you are such we miss you so much. Never seen Malik a day in their life. But Malik didn't want to die and be left undelivered in his grave. So he would hire people to come in, kind of like, you know, like cry for him. And this was not permissible. It's called noha in Arabic. And that's why Nuh alayhi salam is called Nuh from the word noha, because he cried and lamented for 950 years over his ummah, over his people. Then he says the sale of alcohol, interest, music. All of this is, you know with certainty that this is all haram. Therefore, whatever wealth you acquire from such people, even if there's a possibility that it may be from a lawful portion, is still haram to the greater likelihood of it being unlawful. ومن الحرام المحض ما يؤكل من الأوقاف من غير شرط الواقف فمن لم يشتغل بالتفقه فما يأخذه من المدارس حرام ومن ارتكب معصية ترد بها الشهادة فما يأخذه باسم الصوفية من وقف أو غيره حرام. He then says, another completely unlawful source is that which is taken from religious endowments. So things that are waqf, right? Like masjid property and all of these things. You're only allowed to use it in its specific method. I'll give you an example. The Quran's here. They are waqf. It is haram for you to take this outside. If you do, your recitation is haram. Property here is waqf. Aspects and items, they're waqf. You cannot use it for personal reasons and personal gains. When we were in madrasa studying, the tables, writing on the tables, the bathroom, all of these things. You go to the masjid, they're distributing food. It is not permissible for you to take that food outside of the masjid. Zibahatul isti'mal. While you are there, you are welcome to eat it. Now, if there's a surplus, it's about to go to wastage, and then they say, take this, that's a different story. You cannot walk in and say, I need to go, so I'm going to take some food and I'm going to go. It's haram. It's not permissible for you. Because the maqsad of that food is the feeding of the people that are present. It's waqf. It's from waqf wealth. You can't indulge on it beyond. You cannot take the waqf wealth and then say that, okay, you know what, we're going to have these parties. You have to be very, very careful. And I don't say this often. On a personal level, I spend a lot more from my own side just to be cautious that I don't fall short at any given point. That what I put in is much less, well, much more than at any given point where I've benefited something. Because we all have that accountability, especially in waqf wealth. It's very, very, very sensitive. It's a very, very sensitive realm. And because the problem here is when you betray a waqf, it's unlike betraying anything else. Because the whole ummah has a right to it. How are you going to ask the whole ummah for forgiveness? If you fall short with the wealth of waqf and the usage of the waqf wealth, you don't fulfill your responsibility, you don't, you abuse that, you have to answer to the entire ummah. That is why, those who are on our board and stuff, they know that we don't just waste our money at any given junction. We don't just, it's waqf at the end of the day. We calibrate, we see, is there fayda in here? Is there an alternative fayda? If not, is there secondary wealth that's being brought in? Like even operations income, and that's something we learned from ISCC actually. Operations income, we don't have from the wealth, from the charity. We utilize that from other income generating methods. The operations here are not operated through sadaqah. Because again, that sadaqah is a very, very sensitive situation. We don't use zakat at all for any expense. Though we have the right, if a student comes to us and says, I can't afford classes and there's zakat eligible for us to pay through zakat and pay us, there's a whole hila and loop for it. I consult other organizations for them to use hundreds and thousands of dollars of zakat. We do not use a single dollar of zakat here. We give zakat out, we distribute it. Not a single dollar is used in any route, with any hila, with any type of method or mechanism, none whatsoever. We're very particular on these things. Right? These are wealth that can be considered haram. And now if you eat from this and you indulge in this, it's all on you. You buy clothes in this, you're wearing haram all the time. So the brother's clothes look halal, but his income is haram. Therefore, it's as if he is indulgent in haram. So any wealth taken from a school, for example, by one not training to become a jurist is completely unlawful. Likewise, wealth taken in the name of Sufism from an endowment or other, meaning that you're not a student, you're not studying, you're just, sometimes you only go to a program or we're just going to eat and we're going, this is haram. The maqsad of that is not for that. You've missed the point of it. You've used it for your personal benefit. And that's why there's a lot of ihtiyat you have to do. A lot of ihtiyat in this stuff. Bab al-Waqf is a scary chapter. By one who has committed a crime severe enough for his testimony before a court to be rendered illegitimate is also unlawful. To eat from someone like that. وقد ذكرنا مداخل الشبهات والحلال والحرام في كتاب مفرد من كتب إحياء علوم الدين. He said, I've mentioned more details about this in إحياء فعليك بطلبه. Go read it. فإن معرفة الحلال وطلبه فريضة على كل مسلم كالصلاة الخمس. Just the way you have to pray 5 times, you have to know what's halal and haram. That's your fault. You don't know it, lectures aren't enough. Go read. You're all literate. You're all literate. Just don't watch videos. And come back and say, well, I watched this YouTube video. Brother, I'm not going to watch that YouTube video. People send me a whole YouTube video. I'm not even going to watch it on 2x. You send me a book, you send me a quote, you send me a post or something, that's something like I can engage in. But you want me to watch the whole video like you watched it with the ads? I don't have YouTube Premium. No one's got time for that. Read. وَأَمَّا الْفَرْجِ, your private part. فَاحْفَظُوا عَنْ كُلِّ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. Protect it from what Allah has forbidden. وَكُنْ كَمَا قَالَ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين. Be like Allah said, والذين قد أفلح المؤمنون. The believers are successful. Then Allah gives certain aspects of them. Then He says there are those who protect their private parts. Besides on their spouses, أو ما ملكت أيمانهم, or their concubines. فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ. They are not reprimanded for this. Concubines are gone now. You gotta wait for men this time for that. وَلَا تَصِلُوا إِلَى حِفْظِ الْفَرْجِ إِلَّا بِحِفْظِ الْعَيْنِ عَنِ النَّظَرِ. He said, you cannot protect your private parts unless you protect your eyes. The eyes are the gates to what arises inside the privates, a sense of shahwa and a sense of desire. وَحِفْظِ الْقَلْبِ عَنِ الْفِكْرِ. You have to guard the eyes from looking and the heart from reflecting. If you can't guard the eyes from looking and the heart from reflecting, you're going to fail. وَحِفْظِ الْبَطْنِ عَنِ الشُّبْهَةِ وَعَنِ الشِّبْعِ. And guarding your stomach as well. You see, 3 things. Your eyes, they are the ones that, it's like the hook. It hooks, it takes the bait, it hooks it. Your heart is what reels it. And your stomach is what creates the desire in you when you overeat to go fishing in the first place. The eyes are the hook. The heart is the reel. Just constantly bringing it in. And overeating is what makes you be like, I'm bored. I'm tired, I'm lazy. Eat less. Eat less. Because eating a lot makes you lazy. And lazy people become bored quickly. How many of you guys here religiously eat 3 times a day? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. These are honest. Breakfast, lunch, dinner 3 times a day. Sisters? No sisters? Oh, what was it that over here? Breakfast, lunch, dinner? How many of you guys eat 2 times a day? More than the Sahaba ate. وَأَمَّا الْيَدَانِ. How many of you guys eat once a day here? Me? I'm the only one? I have that. I eat once a day. If I eat more than once a day, like it messes with my schedule. I eat once a day. I like it. And the ajib thing is I don't get hungry the rest of the day. It's not like I even remember. So many times I have to recall and think to myself, last time I ate 24 hours, 26 hours. I should eat now. I don't even think about it. But if I want to eat, I can eat more than any of you guys. I used to eat so much in madrasa. I was the third, guy in the tier, like a school of 1,000 students. Number one was Tankul Islam. He was like Tank. Hence he was called Tankul Islam. Obviously you couldn't beat him. The second was Zakwan from Malaysia. His brother Fikri was my classmate. Zakwan was like this skinny. But Zakwan's stomach was like the bottomless pit of hell. You could just kuncha after kuncha after kuncha after kuncha, and he would just devour it. And the third was like I ate a lot. I mean, my position probably was contested, but Mufti Wasim made a poem about me in Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari, about the amount I eat. In Sahih Bukhari, he made a poem about me. My da'wats. I love da'wats. Anyway. وَأَمَّا الْيَدَانِ فَاحْفَظْهُمَا عَنْ أَنْ تَضْرِبَ بِهِمَا مُسْلِمًا. Your hands, protect them from hitting another believer. أَوْ تَتَنَاوَلْ بِهِمَا مَالًا حَرَامًا. Or in getting haram wealth. Protect them from all of this. أَوْ تُؤْذِيَ بِهِمَا أَحَدًا مِنْ خَلْقِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Or harming anyone from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَوْ تَخُونَ بِهِمَا مُسْلِمًا فِي أَمَانَةٍ أَوْ وَدِيعَةٍ. Or that your hands are used for khiyana. أو تكتب بهما ما لا يجوز النطق به ما لا يجوز النطق به. Don't write anything with your hands. Don't text anything that is haram. فإن القلم أحد اللسانين. For the pen is one of the two tongues. فاحفظ القلم عما يجب حفظ اللسان عنه. Guard your tongue from what you cannot even speak. It's the same thing. But your texting is the same thing as your tongue. It's synonymous. أحد lisanain. And I mean, I know we text and I don't really think about it as like writing with a pen, but your texting is actually writing, right? That's what it basically is, right? That's what it is. وَالْقَلَمِ وَمَا يَسْطُرُ. Allah takes an oath on writing. وَالْقَلَمِ. He doesn't just say nun wal-qalam. He doesn't stop there. Because then it could be argued he's only talking about the pen. وَمَا يَسْطُرُ. And whatever writing is being done. This is a noble thing. That's why, we're not supposed to have the pen on the floor. It's against adab. I don't know who I saw the other day. It was a decently learned person. They had the kitab on the floor. A Quran or something on the floor. It's disrespect. It's bay'adbi. Your kitab should not be on the floor. There's actually an order of how you place your books on top of each other. You know your orders of books?
The Quran is the highest, and then Hadith, and
Quran, tarjuma, tafsir. Quran, tarjuma, tafsir, hadith, sharh al-hadith, and then after that it comes fiqh, and then it goes usul al-fiqh, usul al-hadith, usul al-tafsir, mantiq is on the bottom. Mantiq, the scholars hated mantiq. Philosophy and logic. They said, يَجُوزُ الْإِسْتِنْجَى بِأَوْرَاقِ الْمَنْطِقِ. It is permissible to do istinja as toilet paper. Use the mantiq. They really hated the mantiq. It's actually the books of fiqh that it's permissible to take Aristotle's book and make it wallah. But mantiq is very important. It's very important. It's a very important subject. My teachers were masters of mantiq. Random things that you just know in your head. So then he continues and he says, وَأَمَّا الرِّجْلَانِ فَاحْفَظْهُمَا عَنْ أَنْ تَمْشِيَ بِهِمَا إِلَى حَرَامٍ. Your feet, protected from walking towards haram. أَوْ تَسْعَى بِهِمَا إِلَى بَابِ سُلْطَانٍ ظَالِمٍ. Or going to the door of an oppressive politician. Some people bootleg politicians. And they go there and then they don't speak what the truth is. The Prophet ﷺ said, أفضل الجهاد كلمة الحق عند سلطان جائر. The greatest jihad is to speak the truth to a oppressive politician. And hopefully some of you guys will get into politics and help fix it. Just don't become the problem. A politician once, Muslim guy, came to me. And I was like, well, what are you going to vote on this topic and that topic? And he's like, I don't know. Am I surprised you? Am I surprised you? I was like, I want to get surprised. Tell me right now. He's like, well, my constituents are not only Muslims, and I represent X amount of people in this district, and I got to do this. I was like, then why are you begging money from the Muslims? You come and stretch your hands in front of the Muslims and tell them we need a Muslim in politics. And when it comes time for you to serve, then it's like, oh no, my Allah's a sheep. Or no, Pride Month this or that. And these are all Muslim. We don't have a single, that I know of at least, good Muslim politician right now. Half of them have become kafir by the statements that they have said. To say your Allah is a female is kufr. You're out of the fold of Islam. To say that a haram act is permissible, you're done. You're out of the fold of Islam. Like, your janazah will not be prayed. You will not be buried amongst the Muslims. These are serious things. These are not like, oh, we were there, we took a picture and selfie with them, and then we see our own people being like, oh, alhamdulillah, we invited them to our thing and this and that. I mean, the essence of our deen is gone, right? The truth of our deen is gone. Whereas these are fundamental issues that you can't just gloss over and be like, oh, yeah, it's not a problem. We all have to die and enter our grave. We all have to be accountable to Allah. Then he says, فَالْمَشْيُ إِلَى السَّلَاطِينِ الظَّلَمَ مِنْ غَيْرِ ضُرُورَ وَإِرْحَاقٍ مَعْصِيَةٍ. Going to politicians without a necessity that are oppressive is a sin. فَإِنَّهُ تَوَاضُعٌ وَإِكْرَامٌ لَهُمْ. This means you are honoring an abusive person. وَقَدْ أَمَرَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِالْإِعْرَاضِ عَنْهُمْ. And Allah has commanded you to turn away from them. وَهُوَ تَكْثِيرٌ لِسَوَادِهِمْ. And what it'll do, it'll grow their clout and their people. And people will see, oh my God, look how big they are. And this will inadvertently help their oppression. فَإِنْ كَانَ ذَلِكَ سَبَبًا لِطَلَبِ أَمْوَالِهِمْ فَهُوَ سَعْيٌ إِلَى حَرَامٍ. If it's just because you are there for a seat on the table, this is haram. For the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَنْ تَوَاضَعَ لِغَنِيٍّ صَالِحٍ لِغِنَاهُ ذَهَبَ ثُلُثَ دِينَهُ. That 2/3 of a person's iman leaves him if he humbles himself to a righteous, wealthy person to benefit from his wealth. This is in Bayhaqi narrates this. If you go to a good person, a good Muslim, and they're wealthy, this goes for girls and guys both, and you like them and are close to them because of their wealth, 2/3 of your iman leaves you, the barakah. This is a good, righteous, wealthy person. What do you think happens if there's a sinning, wealthy person? The adverse effects of it. Powerful narration of Shu'ab al-Iman. Probably da'if, but still. وعلى الجملة فحركاتك وسكناتك بأعضائك نعمة من نعم الله عليك. فلا تحرك شيئا منها في معصية الله عز وجل أصل واستعملها في طاعة الله تعالى. So the asl is that all of these are limbs and all of these are blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and use them to obey Allah and do not use them to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعْلَمْ إِنَّكَ إِن قَصَّرْتَ فَإِلَيْكَ. He said, if you fall short, and you've made a lot of mistakes, فَإِلَيْكَ تَعُودُ ثَمَرَتُهُ وَاللَّهُ غَنِيٌّ عَنْكَ وَعَنْ عَمَلِكَ وَإِنَّمَا كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ رَهِينَةٌ. He said, you will taste the fruit of your efforts. وَأَنَّ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Every action of yours is a seed, and the fruit of it will be plucked in the hereafter. He says, he quotes a verse, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ رَهِينَةٌ, that every nafs is held hostage to what actions it does. So there's this chapter in fiqh called Kitab al-Rahin. Anyone know about Kitab al-Rahin? The chapter of Rahin? Never heard about it? No. History of Usul al-Fiqh, history and evolution of Usul al-Fiqh. This Thursday, inshallah. We'll be starting our hikmah class for 18 up. Go into the details up there. But Kitab al-Rahin, Rahin is like, if I need to borrow $1,000 from Bilal, and I go to Bilal and I say, Bilal, I need to borrow $1,000. So you're gonna pay me back? I said, you know what? Take my iPad, keep it as collateral. So now, if I don't give him the $1,000 back, he has my iPad. That's the collateral. It's called Rahin. So there's like a whole chapter of fiqh on it. Because people wouldn't only just give they'd give like their goat or their camel in a Rahin. And now who has to pay for the food of the camel? And what happens if the camel dies or gives birth and this and the milk that comes out of it and the goat and all those masalas. Fiqh is beautiful, it's complex. So Allah says your nafs is rahin. It's held hostage as collateral based on the actions you do. So your actions are like a credit card. Now, the more you keep swiping negatively, your nafs is held as collateral. At the end of the day, that's the only thing you can pay with. You're going to end up paying for your actions by yourself. Then he says, وَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَقُولُ. He says, hey, make sure you don't say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَرِيمٌ رَحِيمٌ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ الْعُصَاةِ. Oh, Allah forgives. He's Kareem, He's Rahim. Forgives all sinners. فَإِنَّ هَذِهِ كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ أُرِيدَ بِهَا بَاطِلٌ. The scholars have a saying. It's actually really beautiful. It's the same right here. They say, كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ أُرِيدَ بِهِ بَاطِلٌ. So the sentence is correct. It's a truthful sentence, but the intent of it was evil. كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ أُرِيدَ بِهَا بَاطِلٌ. That statement of truth, but the intention was evil. وَصَاحِبُهَا مُلَقَّبٌ بِالْحَمَاقَةِ بِتَلْقِيبِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ حَيْثُ قَالَ. He said, this man is an idiot. Ahmaq. Ahmaq in Arabic means bewakoof. Why? The Prophet ﷺ called him an idiot. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-kayyisu man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'ad al-maut. The smart person is the one who's like, okay, I have to work for my hereafter. I have to invest in it. Every day, every moment, I have to do some investment. Wal-ajiz. This riwayat is ahmaq, but the other riwayat is wal-ajiz. Wal-ajiz man atba'a nafsahu hawaha wa tamanna ala Allahi al-amani. And the idiot, or the weak person, what do? They sit there and they're like, Allah will take care of it. Allah's ghafur rahim. Do you do this at home? Like, do you just sit there and be like, the government will take care of me. Someone will give me money. I'll just get by. If you're getting sick, you just be like, yeah, you know what, the doctor's gonna call me. I'm not gonna call you. You're gonna die. That expectation of not doing anything. وَالْعَاجِزِ. You're weak. مَنْ أَتْبَعَ نَفْسَهُ هَوَاهَا وَتَمَنَّ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْأَمَانِ. You're just sitting there just hoping that everything will work out. No, it doesn't work like that. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ قَوْلَكَ